Thanks, Terry. And yeah, Terry and I were discussing when we worked together about 20 years ago. I probably had hair at that point, but yeah, life moves on. So I joined Blue Prism about 3 months ago, and that was on the back of roles client side, where I had been Chief Information Officer for a global payments company covering Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and also then moved on to Thames Water, where I spent 3.5 years trying to rebuild our digital capabilities in order to serve 25 million of the UK citizens with critical services. And then latterly spent 6 months advising a company on its future IT strategy. A commonality in amongst all of that has been the requirement for really customer-focused business leadership at digital enablement. And it's never been an easy balance to achieve. And I think that, as Terry has said, there are lots of things that we need to consider and ways and means by which to, manage costs, but really deliver critical customer outcomes, no matter what industry you happen to be in. So yeah, a pleasure to be asked to present this morning. So when we think about, responsible intelligent automation, for me, it's very much looking, at what is actually driving change here, just in the world. And you'll notice there is no mention of the C word on any of these slides, but we will talk about it. Customer experience, the expectations around customer experience have massively changed, and it isn't just the younger generation. Many people are expecting instant service. We've talked about Netflix-like experiences. Financial sustainability, even without the pandemic, it has been challenging as organizations have seen costs rise, profitability fall, competition increase. Climate change and sustainability, I'm sure nobody missed COP26, and just the critical aspect of how do we really get a grip on getting to net zero. What does that mean for everyone? Rather than words, what does the action look like? And, as someone that's come out of certainly CIO roles in 2 industries that are heavily regulated, those regulations can change overnight, and they can have substantial impact on your organization's ability to operate at a profit or however else. And it can just be soul destroying when a regulator comes in and puts something in where everybody's working really hard, and yet they come and rip money out of your organization because you didn't meet some target that they came up with. Now, there are 4 things, but when you look at also things that I think everyone is feeling now, the aging infrastructure and workforce. And when we talk about infrastructure, that can be across lots of different areas, utilities, software, all sorts of things. And we do have areas that are suffering here. And the workforce piece, which links into the future operating model, as Terry has said, current operating models are unsustainable. We are seeing dramatic change in society today. And, we can kind of touch on some of these aspects in kind of looking at 6 forces that are at play. And we talked a little bit about the evolving customer expectations in terms of demand and experience, asset obsolescence. Stuff is driven by environmental factors, technical, but economic and financial. When we look at the impact to the global economy and then economies in countries and regions, some of the shock waves that have come in and some of the schemes that people have needed to put in have had direct impacts on organizations' ability to respond. And if we take, a very simple example in financial services, where across the world, people were looking for relief from things like mortgages and debts, financial services organizations overnight were expected to process that stuff and get back to people. And they can't be left waiting weeks and months to know, are they getting that relief or are they not? This is really critical stuff. And, I'm sure we'll talk about the NHS and health services, really critical things that are happening. And when we talk about social aspects as well, access to basic needs, we see, as Terry said, a real shift in what is going on, how sustainable are people's lives, and the ability for even welfare type organizations to be able to respond to people's needs in the event of unemployment and other requirements. And then the work transformation itself is incredibly interesting. And I personally, over the last 3 or 4 weeks, I can guarantee at least a dozen of my peers have used the phrase, I'm hanging my boots up. And we see a trend, certainly in the 50 plus age bracket in the workforce, that people are going, we've taken our organizations through a massive shock in terms of the pandemic, but that's forced people to reconsider their life balances and what they're doing. And some people are making the choice to go early and say, it is not worth me spending another 10x amount of years. I want to work out how much is enough. And you're seeing a lot of people walk away from the world of work to have a different life at the top of the age range. But equally, for people that are coming into the workforce, their demands, and listen, I'm a big fan of this, their demands are very, very different. They're no longer going to turn up to work, 9 to 5, having been through an hour and a half tortuous commute. These people are now saying, no, work needs to fit us. And therefore, as we all responded to the pandemic and kind of went remote where we could, people are now saying, well, that needs to become the norm. So we have a completely changing pattern there. And then, to touch on a real point that Terry's made, and look, I'm definitely not going to move into any political thing here, but, we see that there's a shortage of workforce, and that's a global scenario. But in certain countries, and certainly the UK, we see massive shortages in staff. And some of this might be a self-inflicted wound via Brexit, but nonetheless, however we got there, we're seeing 1 million plus vacancies. And I'll give you a statistic that it'll be interesting to see our health colleagues comment on. For nurses applying for jobs in the UK, we have seen an 80% drop in people from the EU applying to come and work in the UK. And we have massive gaps. It's not just lorry drivers, it's not just the care industry, hospitality, but there's gaps everywhere, and we are all struggling to fill roles. So, across industry. So a whole load of changes and factors. And, when we move on to kind of when we think about it, how do you get organizational agility and build resilience in? And, if we look at an example from utilities, I certainly won't name the company here, but what they've done is really taken this thing about saying, right, look, automation is no longer this thing that's going to come and steal everybody's jobs and impoverish the world, okay? It never really was, but people like a dramatic headline, right? What we have to work out is, how can we combine a workforce where you have a capability with a digital workforce there to take work away from people that, to be quite honest, to pay a human being to do some of this stuff is absolutely underutilized all of the great things that our people can do. So how do you identify that work? How do you offload it? And it's not robots replacing people, it's intelligent automation able to augment people, help them do their jobs a lot easier, maybe at a greater pace. But when you're talking about people who are dealing with customers or patients, or the other day I talked to Times Higher Education about students, you want to be spending the time having human-to-human conversation, not being a slave to the system that's asking you in front of you for more information, or its tortures to get the information you need. And when we look at, a hybrid work scenario, what certain companies have done is work out how to get that blend there, to give people access to resources, but also new learning models. And if we think about anything that most of our organizations have had to deal with in the last 2 years that we didn't so much before, learning is about so much more than just the technical. We're now needing to have access to things like mental health skills. How do we manage ourselves? How do we as managers and leaders spot on other people? And then we see some statistics here about certainly the utilities industry, which, I've been part of. that there's more and more penetration of artificial intelligence, intelligent automation into these industries to help field force as well as office. And then, last bit on this I will talk to will be new businesses. We have a customer in the energy business who actually have more digital workers than they do human workers. Because when they set the company up, what they said was that we are automation first. Automation is not an add-on. We need to embrace it in our core design rather than it be a follow-on add-on. So, a couple of examples, and I'm sure we'll hear more today. And then when we kind of look at the state of the nation, where are we with intelligent automation? What is intelligent automation? It is far more than just a robot clicking where a human being would have. It's the ability to add decision making. So if you're processing mortgage, holiday applications, it can actually go through, use your criteria, score it, and get that done. I spoke to a customer yesterday who was able to process this stuff in a day, a single day. So if you applied, the decision was there, and that helped people. So when we look at where are we with the adoption of intelligent automation across various industries, you can see that there's lots of work going on, but when you move to the right of here, people that have this in production are scaling it up within their organization. There is still a huge amount of opportunity. And for someone that has been a CIO, customer side, my greatest regret was that I didn't know enough about the capabilities that certainly Blue Prism, but intelligent automation in general had. And I left things on the table at Thames. I could have done a lot more had I known and would have the capabilities that certainly Blue Prism and others have today. And that is about helping workers do the job to serve the customer. So really, to kind of summarize, and I don't want to take too much time, work has changed. It's going to continue to do so. People at the upper end of the work age range are leaving across multiple industries. New entries coming in want to know, they want to demand that the work that they do is rewarding. They want to actually be able to have some influence over when and where they do it. And work to live is absolutely a mantra for those that have, the blessing of being able to get into the workforce. Automation is definitely not a social cloud on the horizon. It's a real tool to help organizations do the work they need to do. 2 years ago, you might have said, meh, I'll use it, I might not use it, I'll get some additional profitability. Now, with a challenging workforce, it really is a case of, if you're not doing this and you have challenges, you've got to ask yourself, why are you not looking at this as a way to help your teams, help your customers? And a critical point as well is that security, we've all seen the things about cyber security. It is critical. It really is. You've got to have systems that are designed with cyber resilience and data protection in mind. They're non-negotiable anymore. We've seen enough headlines about data leaks. You've got to be picking systems that are designed this way, because if you're not, you could be hacked into and have data breaches. And then, the last part here, social and environmental responsibility and flexibility with your workforce are now key employability factors. People are going to be coming to you and saying, what are you doing on environmental? How can you demonstrate it? And automation can help there. What are you doing about helping me be flexible? And I think these factors, in order to attract employees at the very start, are just absolutely critical. So Terry, that was all really I had this morning to cover off. I hope that kind of maybe opens up a few thoughts.
Fantastic stuff, Tony. Thank you for that. And yes, it does. I mean, great perspective and some new themes, I think, emerging from what you said that hopefully we'll explore a little bit more. The impact on sustainability, social environment responsibility, and that's role in being or attracting employment, but also I think, and if we have time, maybe we'll get Kerry to speak on this, that social environment responsibility and its place in the supply chain as well. The organisations wanting to see somebody's sustainability capabilities as part of making a vendor selection. So it talks to employment, but it also talks to how organisations are contracting with each other or choosing their supply chain. So really interesting themes. I'm sure we'll have some a chance to chat a little bit more in the Q&A later.